In Scripture, a curious silence exists. There are stories that thunder with divine pronouncements. We hear of burning bushes that are not consumed, of seas parting with a dramatic flourish, and of plagues descending from the heavens with terrifying precision. Voices call out from whirlwinds, and angels arrive with messages that alter the course of history. These are the stories that shout of God's presence, where His intervention is as clear as lightning against a darkened sky. They are magnificent, undeniable, and they fill us with awe at a power that can bend the very laws of nature to its will. They speak of a God who is loud, who is visible, and who leaves no room for doubt. But what of the stories that are quiet? What happens when the heavens fall silent, when the grand pronouncements cease, and when the world seems to spin on its own axis, governed only by human ambition and the cold calculus of chance? This is the world of Esther. Within its pages you will not find a single overt miracle. No seas split, no plagues fall, no prophet speaks with a voice of thunder. In fact, most astonishingly, the name of God is not mentioned, not once. It is a conspicuous absence, a silence so profound it feels deliberate, almost like a challenge, inviting us to look deeper. It invites us to consider a world much like our own, where faith operates without visible reassurance. Esther's story suggests God's sovereignty is demonstrated through human choices and timings. God's absence from the text does not equate to His absence from our reality. To walk through the story of Esther is to enter a world that feels remarkably familiar to our own. It is a place where human agency appears to be the primary force shaping destiny. Decisions are made in royal courts, not on sacred mountains. Power is wielded by kings and their advisors, who operate according to their own desires, fears, and ambitions. The narrative is driven by royal decrees, political maneuvering, and the bitter hatred of one man, Haman, whose pride is so wounded that he seeks to exterminate an entire race. There are no sudden supernatural interruptions to these human dramas. The story proceeds with a logic that is entirely of this world. The absence of God's name is the most startling feature of this book. While other biblical texts are saturated with references to the Lord, with prayers, psalms, and prophecies, Esther remains starkly secular in its language. The characters do not call upon God for deliverance in moments of crisis, at least not in any way the narrator chooses to record. When faced with an edict of total annihilation, their response is fasting, weeping, and mourning, actions steeped in spiritual tradition yet presented without any explicit mention of the divine recipient of these pleas. The silence is not just in the heavens, it is on the tongues of the protagonists themselves. This lack of overt divine activity forces the reader into a different mode of perception. We are not told where God is, we are invited to find Him. His presence is not a given fact of the narrative, but a conclusion to be drawn from the evidence. It requires a shift from looking for the spectacular to observing the subtle. It is an exercise in seeing the hand of a master artist not in a bold signature scrawled across the canvas, but in the perfect composition, the flawless balance of light and shadow, and the intricate interplay of seemingly disconnected elements that come together to form a breathtaking masterpiece. The miracle is not in the event, but in the timing. Consider the series of events that unfold. A powerful queen, Vashti, is banished for refusing a drunken king's summons. This creates a vacancy. The story opens with a display of mortal power in the Persian Empire. The stage is set in Susa, governed by royal ego. The king hosts a feast to flaunt his riches. The story begins not with a prayer, but with a party. A spectacle of staggering opulence hosted by King Xerxes of Persia, a man whose empire stretched from India to Ethiopia. For 180 days, he paraded the vast riches of his glorious kingdom before his princes and servants, a testament to his own monumental power and prestige. This was more than just a celebration, it was a calculated display of might, a reminder to all who ruled under him that his authority was absolute. The air was thick with the scent of expensive wine and roasted meats, the halls echoing with the sounds of music and self-congratulatory laughter. In this world, power was visible, tangible, and celebrated with unbridled excess. At the climax of this extravagant affair, the king, his heart merry with wine, made a fateful command. He summoned his queen, Vashti, to appear before his guests. The text is clear on his motive. He wanted to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was lovely to look at. She was to be the final, most prized exhibit in his collection of treasures. It was a demand born not of affection but of arrogance, an order that reduced her from a queen to an object, a trophy to be paraded for the gratification of drunken men. It was a moment that distilled the very essence of the Persian court, a place where human dignity was secondary to the whims of the powerful. The king's advisors, fearing that Vashti's defiance would inspire widespread rebellions among the women of the empire, counseled a harsh and permanent response. They argued for her immediate and irrevocable banishment, a royal edict that would ensure no woman would ever again dare to disrespect her husband. The king, in his fury and humiliation, agreed. And so, with the stroke of a pen, Queen Vashti was deposed, vanishing from the historical record forever. It appeared to be nothing more than the predictable outcome of pride clashing with power. A palace drama played out on the grandest of stages. Queen Vashti refuses the king's command, leading to her deposition and a power vacuum. We are not told her exact reasons. Was it an act of profound personal dignity, a refusal to be objectified? As many believe, she didn't want to be objectified by a room full of intoxicated men. Others view it as a bold, courageous stand for modesty or personal honor. Or was it a calculated political move, a public challenge to her husband's authority? Or was it simply a moment of defiant pride? Whatever her motive, her refusal sent shockwaves through the banquet hall. The king's celebration turned instantly to rage. His carefully constructed image of absolute power had been publicly fractured by the one person he believed was entirely under his control. The silence that followed her refusal was deafening, a stark contrast to the boisterous celebration that had preceded it. A single human decision had brought the king's grand display to a screeching halt. From a purely human perspective, this was a domestic dispute with immense political consequences. The search for a new queen begins. The banishment of Vashti created a vacuum at the very heart of the Persian Empire. The throne beside King Xerxes was now empty. To the court and the kingdom, this was a political problem requiring a political solution. A new queen had to be found, one who would be not only beautiful, but also, presumably, more compliant than her predecessor. The king's advisors proposed a plan that was both pragmatic and grandiose, a nationwide pageant. They would gather the most beautiful young virgins from every province of the vast empire and bring them to the citadel of Susa. Among the candidates is Esther, a Jewish orphan. There they would undergo extensive beauty treatments before being presented to the king, who would then choose his new queen from among them. This solution was entirely of this world, a reflection of the values of the Persian court. It was a system designed to please the king and secure the political stability of his household. There was no divine consultation, no seeking of omens, no prayer to any god for guidance. It was a human plan, executed with bureaucratic efficiency. Messengers were dispatched, edicts were proclaimed, and the great machinery of the empire was put into motion to solve the problem of the empty throne. Her selection seems like chance, but Providence is at work. The stage is set by interconnected events, orchestrating a future deliverance. The world of Esther is painted with human frailty, ambition, and the terrifying caprice of absolute power. Two key figures emerge: Mordecai, embodying integrity, and Haman, the personification of arrogance and hatred. Haman's hatred escalates into a genocidal plot. The fate of a nation hangs on royal whim and personal animosity. Deliverance lies in the courage of individuals in impossible circumstances. The narrative of Esther forces a question. Where is God when he cannot be seen or heard? The story strips away divine activity to challenge us to find God in the gaps. God's presence is in the mundane, working through human choices to achieve his purposes. The characters are unaware of the full script. We too live without a narrator, facing situations where God feels silent. The book of Esther shows that even in silence a divine plan unfolds. It's a call to believe in the author, even when we only see a confusing page. The suspense is about how God will reveal his hand. God reveals himself in the tapestry of redemption woven from human history. The hidden God is the master artist working silently. The story begins with a party. King Ahasuerus, ruler of an empire, summons his court to Susa. He displays his kingdom's majesty. On the final day, the king demands Queen Vashti appear. She refuses. She shatters the illusion of his control. It's the first note of divine orchestration. The king is furious. It becomes a crisis of state. God begins his work. The king, tossed by his emotions and advisors, is swayed by Memucan, who frames Vashti's defiance as a threat. A royal edict banishes Vashti, her future erased. The throne is now empty, a critical move in a hidden strategy. God works through flawed actions to achieve his ends. The stage is set for a young Jewish girl. The emptying of the throne aligns with a larger plan. The search begins, drawing an orphan into power. With Queen Vashti banished, the king's servants propose a grand-scale beauty pageant. Young virgins are gathered to the citadel of Susa. The maiden who pleases the king will become the new queen. Among them is Hadassah, a Jewish orphan also known as Esther. Following her cousin Mordecai's instruction, she conceals her Jewish origins. Esther is taken to the citadel, hiding her identity. As she enters the palace, she keeps her origins a secret, unaware of her destiny. Inside the royal harem, Esther, a Jewish orphan, stood out. She pleased Hegai, the king's eunuch, and obtained kindness. Hegai swiftly provided her beauty preparations, special food, 7 maids, and the best harem quarters. This unexplained favor is the hidden God at work. The narrative offers no human reason, simply presenting the favor as fact. God is softening a heart, arranging for an official to look upon his chosen vessel with kindness. This combination of unearned favor and humble character proves irresistible. This pervasive supernatural grace is the clearest sign that a power beyond her own is paving her way. Esther is brought before King Ahasuerus. The king loved Esther more than all the other women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight. The king places the royal crown upon her head and makes her queen. The hidden Jew now sits on the throne. It is a staggering victory for the hidden God, who has placed his agent in the highest seat of influence. The king throws a lavish feast in Esther's honor and proclaims a holiday. Her new station has not corrupted her character. The stage is now perfectly set for the crisis that is to come. As Esther ascends the throne, the narrative introduces Haman the Agagite. King Ahasuerus promotes Haman, setting him above all princes. This promotion is mysterious. Haman, an Agagite, is an enemy of Israel. All are commanded to bow to him. This sets the stage for conflict. Esther and Haman's ascents create a balance of power. Esther's power is hidden, Haman's is public. This sets up a struggle for a nation's survival. Haman's authority is challenged at the king's gate. Mordecai the Jew refuses to bow, a consistent, principled stand. His refusal stems from deep religious conviction. Officials report Mordecai to Haman, eager to see his reaction. Haman is filled with wrath. Mordecai's defiance is an intolerable public insult. Haman's wounded pride demands more than just punishing Mordecai. His personal vendetta becomes a genocidal impulse. He resolves to destroy all the Jews. A conflict escalates into a plot for annihilation. Just as the ominous storm clouds of Haman's hatred begin to gather, the narrative inserts a seemingly unrelated event, a detail that appears minor at the time but will prove to be of monumental importance. This is a classic technique of the story's hidden author, planting a seed that will only bear fruit much later. While Mordecai is faithfully carrying out his duties at the king's gate, a position that makes him privy to the palace's comings and goings, his attentiveness uncovers a deadly secret. He overhears 2 of the king's eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh, who guarded the threshold, speaking in anger. They are conspiring to lay violent hands on King Ahasuerus himself, plotting his assassination. This is a moment of pure, unadulterated chance from a human perspective. Mordecai, demonstrating his unwavering loyalty not just to his people, but to the crown under which he lives, does not hesitate. He understands the gravity of the information he possesses. The stability of the empire, for all its flaws, is preferable to the chaos of a regicide. He immediately gets word to Queen Esther, his secret conduit to the throne. This act highlights the strategic brilliance of the providential plan. Without Esther in her position, Mordecai's knowledge would have been useless. He would have had no credible way to transmit such a high-level security threat to the king. His connection to the queen, a bond forged in secrecy and familial love, now becomes an instrument for the preservation of the very king whose life will later be essential for the Jews' salvation. Esther, in turn, acts with speed and discretion. She receives the information from Mordecai and immediately reports it to the king, making sure to credit Mordecai as the source. Her loyalty to her cousin and her duty to the king work in perfect harmony. She does not attempt to take the credit for herself to bolster her own standing. This act of integrity is crucial. By naming Mordecai, she ensures that his deed is officially recognized, even if it is not immediately rewarded. The report is investigated, the conspiracy is confirmed, and the two treacherous eunuchs are summarily executed, hanged on a gallows. The immediate crisis is averted, the king's life is saved, all thanks to the vigilance of a humble Jewish man sitting at the gate. The entire episode unfolds with quiet efficiency. A plot is hatched, overheard, reported, and neutralized. On the surface, it is a straightforward story of palace intrigue and loyalty. Yet beneath the surface, it is a masterful move by the unseen hand of God. This event accomplishes two critical things. First, it places the king in Mordecai's debt, creating a store of goodwill that will be drawn upon at the most critical moment. Second, it establishes Mordecai's unimpeachable character and loyalty to the throne, a fact that will later serve as a stunning counterpoint to Haman's treacherous accusations against him and the Jewish people. A seed has been planted in the royal records, a time bomb of truth waiting for the perfect moment to detonate. After Mordecai saves the king, his heroism is recorded in the royal chronicles, then promptly forgotten. No reward, no recognition. Mordecai returns to his post, his good deed ignored. This silence isn't neglect, but a setup. The unrewarded act lingers, waiting for a pivotal moment. The world's injustice is clear. Virtue goes unnoticed, while evil rises. But the story hints that justice, though delayed, is coming. Esther enjoys royal life, unaware of Haman's plot and the danger to her people. Haman's hatred grows into a genocidal plan, while Mordecai alone grasps the full threat. The queen is in place but ignorant, the enemy is active and the hero's loyalty is ignored. Tension mounts. Every piece is set and the crisis is about to erupt. Haman's hatred becomes policy. He casts lots to pick a date for genocide, trusting superstition over reason. The chosen day, months away, ironically, gives time for resistance to form. Evil is now official, methodical, and chillingly patient as Haman manipulates the machinery of state. The silence of God allows the plan to unfold, but the fuse is lit for a reckoning. Haman convinces the king to authorize genocide, disguising hatred as statecraft and offering a fortune for complicity. The king, indifferent, hands over his signet ring. If this story has inspired you, take a moment to reflect, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives into timeless stories. Your engagement helps us bring more meaningful content to you and others. Evil is now law. Decrees go out. On a set day, all Jews are to be destroyed, their property plundered. As the city reels in confusion, the king and Haman celebrate, oblivious to the chaos they've unleashed. The decree's horror sparks public mourning. Jews everywhere weep, fast, and wail. Mordecai, in sackcloth and ashes, grieves openly at the king's gate, barred from power but impossible to ignore. His protest is both despair and defiance, forcing the city to witness the cost of hatred and indifference. In the silence of God, the cries of the people rise, demanding justice and setting the stage for what comes next. The news of this public display of grief quickly penetrates the insulated walls of the royal palace. Esther's maids and eunuchs, seeing the commotion and, likely hearing Mordecai's specific lament, report the situation to the queen. Her initial reaction is one of deep distress, though she does not yet know the cause. Her first instinct is to alleviate her cousin's suffering in the only way she knows how. She sends fresh garments to Mordecai, hoping he will remove his sackcloth and return to some semblance of normalcy. This act, while well-intentioned, reveals her naivete and her distance from the brutal reality that has unfolded outside the palace. She seeks to treat the symptom, the sackcloth, without understanding the catastrophic disease that has caused it. Mordecai, of course, refuses the clothes. His grief is not a performance to be ended with a change of costume. Realizing that something is terribly wrong, Esther takes the next step. She summons Hathach, one of the king's own eunuchs, who had been appointed to attend her. She gives him a direct command: go to Mordecai and find out what is wrong and why he is acting this way. This is honestly a risky move. She is using her royal resources to investigate a matter that is clearly agitating the city, a matter connected to the king's gate. Hathach acts as the crucial intermediary, a bridge across the chasm separating the queen's cloistered world from Mordecai's public despair. He goes to Mordecai in the open square before the king's gate, becoming the conduit for the most important message of Esther's life. Mordecai holds nothing back. He tells Hathach everything: the exact sum of money Haman promised the king, the full details of the plot to destroy the Jews, and the precise wording of the evil decree. To ensure Esther understands the gravity of the situation completely, he gives Hathach a physical copy of the written edict that had been issued in Susa. This is the hard evidence, the undeniable proof of the state-sanctioned genocide. The abstract has become concrete. Mordecai's plea is no longer just a cry of grief. It is now a meticulously detailed intelligence briefing, armed with facts and figures and primary source documentation. He is not just sharing his sorrow, he is building a case for action. Finally, Mordecai delivers his charge through Hathach. He instructs the eunuch to show the edict to Esther, to explain everything to her, and to charge her with a specific mission. She is to go into the king's presence to implore his favor and to plead with him face to face for the lives of her people. This is, well, a staggering request. He is asking her to do the one thing he has always forbidden: to reveal her Jewish identity. And he is asking her to do it in the most dangerous way imaginable, by approaching the king uninvited. The desperate plea has been delivered. The weight of a nation's survival now shifts from the man in sackcloth at the gate to the woman in silk on the throne. When Hathach returns and relays Mordecai's message and his terrifying charge, the full weight of Esther's crown and the reality of her position come crashing down upon her. The news itself is devastating, a death sentence for her, her family, and her entire people. But the command from Mordecai presents an immediate and seemingly insurmountable obstacle. Her response to him, sent back through Hathach, is not one of defiance, but of profound and legitimate fear. She reminds Mordecai of a law known to every single person in the Persian Empire. Anyone, man or woman, who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned is to be put to death. There is only one exception. If the king extends his golden scepter, that person may live. This law was not a mere formality. It was a deadly serious protocol designed to protect the king and underscore his absolute power. Esther's life, despite her title as queen, is subject to the same brutal rule. To approach the king uninvited was to gamble with her life, betting everything on the fickle mood of a capricious monarch. She is trapped by the very system that has elevated her. Her crown gives her proximity to power, but it does not grant her immunity from its dangers. Her fear is rational. She is not just a queen, she is a subject, and her life is forfeit if she breaks the protocol of the court. To compound the peril, Esther adds a personal and critical detail. But as for me, she tells Mordecai, I have not been called to come into the king for these 30 days. This piece of information is, well, devastating. It suggests that she is not currently in the king's favor. 30 days is a long time in the life of a royal marriage, especially one with a king who has a vast harem at his disposal. Her influence, her charm, and the love the king once felt for her may have waned. Approaching him now, unsummoned after a month of silence, would be an even greater risk. Her plea for her people could be interpreted as a desperate, insolent grab for attention from a queen who has fallen out of favor. Her message to Mordecai is a cry of despair. a statement of her powerlessness in the face of an ironclad law and a distant husband. The weight of the crown feels less like a symbol of power and more like a gilded cage. She has laid out the political and personal realities of her situation, explaining that the mission he has given her is, in all likelihood, a suicide mission. The silence of God is now mirrored by the silence of the king. She is isolated, trapped between a genocidal decree from without and a deadly protocol from within. The courage Mordecai is demanding seems to be an impossible and fatal request. Mordecai challenges Esther, shattering her illusion of safety. Deliverance is guaranteed, but will Esther be the instrument God uses? Mordecai asks, "Who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" It was all a prelude, a divine positioning for this moment. She is transformed into a courageous leader, accepting the challenge. "Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." She chooses to act, embracing her destiny. After days of fasting and prayer, Esther prepares to face the king. Adorning herself in royal robes, she walks into the court. Her life hangs on the king's reaction, who could legally have her executed, but she finds favor in his sight. The king extends his golden scepter, sparing her life. He offers her anything, even half his kingdom. Instead of revealing her plea, Esther invites the king and Haman to a feast, setting the stage for her plan. The king, eager to please Esther, commands Haman to the banquet. Haman believes this exclusive invitation is a sign of his importance. He doesn't realize he's walking into a trap. At the banquet, the king repeats his offer to Esther. "What is your request? Even to half the kingdom it shall be done." Esther delays, demonstrating divine patience. She invites them to another banquet tomorrow, promising to reveal her request then. This postponement creates a crucial night, allowing God to arrange the final pieces. Esther's patience sets the stage for a sleepless night that will change history. Haman leaves the first banquet in a state of euphoric bliss. He is, in his own estimation, on top of the world. The text says he went out that day joyful and glad of heart. He has been singled out for the highest honor, dining exclusively with the king and queen, and has been invited back for a second time. His power and prestige seem boundless, but his elation is instantly shattered by a single sight: Mordecai at the king's gate, still refusing to stand or tremble before him. This one act of defiance completely eclipses the immense honor he has just received. His joy evaporates, replaced once more by an all-consuming rage. It is a stark illustration of how pride is a fragile master, its happiness dependent on the submission of all others. That night, while Haman is at home plotting the specifics of Mordecai's demise, another far more significant event is unfolding in the palace. The king cannot sleep. The narrative gives no reason for his insomnia. It is simply a fact. This is not a common ailment for a king who could summon any distraction he desired. This is a divinely induced restlessness. Heaven, which has been silent for so long, now intervenes in the most subtle way imaginable, by withdrawing the gift of sleep from a single man. The king, tossing and turning, does what many powerful but bored people do. He calls for some light reading to pass the time. He commands that the royal chronicles, the official records of his reign, be brought and read to him. The servant opens the vast scrolls, filled with the mundane and momentous events of the empire, and begins to read. Of all the thousands of entries he could have chosen, his finger lands on one specific, forgotten story. He reads aloud the account of how Mordecai the Jew had uncovered the assassination plot of Bigthan and Teresh, the two eunuchs who had guarded the threshold. The king's memory is suddenly jogged. The story, once recorded and filed away, is brought back into the light at the precise moment it is needed most. This is no coincidence. This is a divine appointment. The seed of loyalty planted chapters ago and left unrewarded is about to sprout in the middle of the night. The king, now fully alert, interrupts the reading with a crucial question. What honor or distinction has been bestowed on Mordecai for this? His servants, searching the records, give the only possible answer. Nothing has been done for him. The unrewarded good deed, the injustice that has been allowed to stand, is now laid bare before the insomniac king. The divine timing is breathtakingly perfect. Just as Haman is preparing to ask for permission to hang this very man, the king is discovering that he owes this same man a great debt of honor. The stage is now set for a reversal of fortune so dramatic and so ironic that only a divine playwright could have authored it. As dawn breaks, Haman, full of arrogant purpose, arrives early at the outer court of the palace. He has spent the night building a gallows 75 feet high specifically for Mordecai, and he has come to get the king's permission to hang him before the second banquet. He cannot bear the thought of dining again while his enemy still lives. At that very moment, the king, still stewing over his unfulfilled obligation, asks his servants, "Who is in the court?" They reply, "Haman is there, standing in the court." The king, seeing this as a perfect opportunity, commands, "Let him come in." Haman enters, his mind bursting with his malevolent request, completely unaware that the king's mind is on a totally different track. Before Haman can utter a single word of his own agenda, the king poses a question to him. What should be done for the man whom the king delights to honor? Haman's pride, which is his fatal flaw, immediately blinds him. He cannot conceive that the king would wish to honor anyone other than himself. Whom would the king delight to honor more than me? He thinks. His heart soars. He assumes this is his reward for his great service to the empire. And so, in his arrogance, he designs the most extravagant, public and glorious ceremony of honor imaginable, a parade of royal affirmation that he believes is for himself. He is unwittingly crafting the perfect reward for the very man he came to destroy. Haman lays out the elaborate plan. Let a royal robe that the king himself has worn and a horse that the king has ridden be brought. Let these be given to one of the king's most noble princes, who shall then array the man whom the king delights to honor and lead him on horseback through the city square, proclaiming before him, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." He has described a ceremony that confers the highest possible public recognition, short of the crown itself. The king, delighted with this grandiose suggestion, immediately agrees. The irony is about to become excruciatingly real. The king delivers the fatal, crushing command, "Hurry, take the robe and the horse as you have said, and do so for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Leave out nothing that you have spoken." The reversal is sudden and brutal and absolute. The name Mordecai the Jew must have hit Haman like a physical blow. The man he came to hang he must now honor. The gallows he built stands ready, but instead of leading Mordecai to it, he must lead him in a parade of glory. He, Haman, one of the most noble princes, must be the one to dress his enemy in royal robes and publicly proclaim his greatness. It is a humiliation so complete, so perfectly tailored to his pride, that it can only be described as a work of divine art. Haman is forced to honor Mordecai. Haman rushes home, his pride shattered. The king's eunuchs arrive to hurry him to the second banquet. The king asks Esther again, promising to grant her request. Esther reveals the truth. She and her people have been sold to be destroyed. She points at Haman, declaring him the wicked enemy. Haman is unmasked, his world unraveling. The story of Esther echoes in our modern lives. The most profound connection is in the overwhelming silence of God. Have you felt your pleas met with an empty heaven? We live where faith must survive in the quiet. We are left with grief and questions, wrestling with a reality that seems unjust. We are walking through the dark, trusting we are not walking alone. Esther's story unfolds on a divine timeline, different from our own. While we wait, God is working, preparing a deliverance we cannot yet see. The story of the hidden God is an antidote to despair. Our stories are a purposeful narrative woven by a master artist. Even when the author is silent, he has not abandoned the story. The story of Esther teaches us to look for God's hand not in the supernatural, but in the supremely ordinary. The pivotal turning point of the entire epic does not come from a heavenly vision or an angelic messenger. It comes from a king's bout of insomnia, a sleepless night. It is an experience so common, so mundane, that we would never think to assign it any divine significance. Yet, in this narrative, it becomes the hinge upon which destiny turns. This simple, everyday occurrence was the chosen instrument of God to bring a forgotten good deed to light and set in motion the great reversal. This challenges us to reconsider the seemingly random, insignificant events in our own lives. Could our delays, our detours, and even our restless nights be part of a larger, unseen plan? Think of the coincidences that have shaped your own journey. The chance meeting that led to a lifelong friendship or a career. The missed flight that caused you to avoid a disaster or meet someone significant. The book that fell off a shelf at the exact moment you needed its message. The story of Esther suggests that these are not mere accidents. They are the fingerprints of a hidden God, the subtle ways he steers our lives, connects our paths, and positions us for purposes we do not yet understand. Just as Mordecai's overhearing of a plot was a crucial providential moment, our own moments of being in the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the right time may be far more significant than we realize. This perspective transforms how we view our daily existence. It infuses the mundane with a sense of potential and mystery. The frustrating traffic jam might be protecting you from an accident ahead. The job you didn't get might be clearing the way for the one you were truly meant for. The difficult person you have to interact with every day might be an instrument for developing patience and grace within you. Providence, as seen in the book of Esther, is not about violating the natural order of things. It is about God's masterful ability to work within the natural order through human choices, character flaws, and everyday occurrences to orchestrate his perfect will. He is the God of the grand and the God of the granular. This is a deeply comforting and empowering theology. It means that we don't have to wait for a burning bush to know that God is with us. We can see his work in the kindness of a stranger, in the unexpected resolution of a problem, or in the sudden insight that arrives during a quiet moment. It encourages us to live with our eyes open, to pay attention to the subtle currents of grace that flow beneath the surface of our lives. The hidden God is constantly leaving clues, weaving threads, and arranging details. Our task is to learn to recognize his signature in the ordinary, beautiful, and sometimes frustrating fabric of our everyday lives. Mordecai's question, "Who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" is a question that every person of faith must eventually ask. It reframes our circumstances as a potential divine appointment. Our unique position in life is not an accident. We are placed where we are for a purpose. Like Esther, we may be unaware of that purpose for a long time until the moment our presence becomes critical. Her life was a long period of preparation for a single pivotal act of courage. The seasons of waiting are not wasted time, they are the training ground. It encourages us to be faithful in the small things for such a time as this moment. Living with this perspective changes everything. Our small acts of obedience are crucial threads in a larger tapestry. We have a choice whether to be part of God's plan. It is a call to believe our lives have ultimate meaning and to be ready to act when the time comes. Esther's story is a profound theological statement. Haman is hanged on the very gallows he built for Mordecai. Mordecai is elevated to prime minister, clothed in royal blue and white, wearing a great crown of gold. This perfect reversal is the signature of the hidden God, revealed in the masterful brushstroke of his providence. Mordecai writes a new decree, empowering the Jews to defend themselves. God provides a way through obstacles, using the enemy's own rules to bring deliverance. The king's insomnia, Mordecai's loyalty, and Esther's patience converge in divine timing. The hidden God demonstrates he was present and in control all along. He is on the throne, weaving human evil and faithfulness into a beautiful tapestry. God retains ultimate control, ensuring his redemption purposes have the final word. The story of Esther is a guide for navigating life when heaven feels quiet. It teaches us faith is the quiet, stubborn trust in the storyteller, even when we cannot read the next page. This is the trust we cultivate. God's redemptive plan is always in motion. Like Esther, we may be positioned for a purpose we don't yet understand. Our workplaces are stages upon which hidden providence unfolds. We are called to live with integrity, knowing our small daily choices matter. God equips the called, often through trials that seem designed to crush us. Trusting the silence requires redefining miracles. Develop eyes that see the miraculous in the mundane. God's primary mode of operation is often through the quiet, ordinary channels of life. Trust that a wise and loving author is in control. No decree can stand against God's ultimate purpose. His final chapter is always one of redemption and life. The story of Esther teaches us that God's control is not always a loud interruption, but often a quiet integration. Because the story unfolds in this way, without a narrator explicitly pointing to God's involvement, it leaves us with a profound and lingering question. It is a question that echoes from the ancient courts of Susa into the corridors of our own lives, into our moments of confusion, our seasons of doubt, and our times of painful silence. The question is this: can you trust a God you cannot see? Can you have faith in a divine plan when all you can perceive is chaos, coincidence, and the unpredictable actions of human beings? Can you believe in a protector who does not announce his presence with thunder? This is the central challenge of the book. It asks us to cultivate a faith that can withstand the absence of signs and wonders. It invites us to believe that God's silence is not the same as his absence, and that his stillness is not the same as his inaction. Esther and Mordecai are the models for this kind of faith. Faced with an inescapable decree of death, they do not receive a prophetic word or a miraculous sign. Instead, they act. They fast, they pray in the silence, and they devise a courageous, risky, and entirely human plan. Esther must use her wits, her charm, and her position to appeal to a volatile king. Her famous declaration, "If I perish, I perish," is not a cry of despair, but a statement of resolute faith in the dark. It is an acknowledgement that she is stepping into the unknown, with no guarantee of success, but she is stepping forward anyway. She is trusting that even if her efforts fail, her life is held within a larger purpose she may not fully understand. Her courage is not born from divine certainty, but from a deep-seated trust that there is a power at work beyond what she can see or hear. She acts on the hope that her small, trembling decision can become part of a much larger, unseen deliverance. And so, the story of Esther is more than just a historical account of deliverance. It is a timeless parable about the nature of faith in a world that often feels godless. It speaks directly to our own experiences of unanswered prayer, of careers that stall, of relationships that break, and of suffering that seems meaningless. It challenges the notion that God is only present in the spectacular. It suggests that he is also, and perhaps more often, found in the ordinary, in the mundane, in the quiet unfolding of our days. The unspoken question of Esther is the question for all of us. When heaven goes quiet, do we believe it has gone blind, or do we trust that there is a hidden God still writing our story? The story does not end simply with the deliverance of the Jewish people. It culminates in the establishment of a new tradition, a perpetual celebration to ensure that the memory of this great reversal is never forgotten. Mordecai and Esther institute the Feast of Purim, named after the pur or the lot that Haman cast to determine the day of their destruction. This act is the final, brilliant stroke of irony. The very instrument Haman used to choose the date of his evil plot becomes the name of the festival celebrating his downfall. It is a powerful reminder that God can take the enemy's greatest weapon, be it a gallows, a decree, or a game of chance, and transform it into a trophy of his victory and a symbol of his people's salvation for all generations. The celebration of Purim is mandated as a time of feasting and gladness, of sending gifts to one another and gifts to the poor. This is not a solemn memorial, but a joyous, raucous festival. It is a celebration characterized by feasting, community, and radical generosity. The command to give gifts, especially to the poor, embeds a crucial ethical principle into the heart of the commemoration. True celebration of God's deliverance is not just about personal relief. It must overflow into tangible acts of kindness and social responsibility. It recognizes that we are blessed so that we can be a blessing, and that the joy of our own salvation is made complete only when we share its fruits with others, particularly those who are in need. The enduring legacy of Purim is its defiant joy in the face of a world that is often dark and threatening. It is an annual, active rebellion against despair. By reading the story of Esther, dressing in costumes and celebrating, the Jewish people do more than just remember a historical event. They reenact the triumph of hope over hatred, of life over death, and of divine providence over human evil. The festival serves as a yearly reminder that history is not a random series of events, but a story with a moral arc, and that even in the most profound silence, God is at work to protect and redeem his people. It is a testament to the fact that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. For all people of faith, the message of Purim extends far beyond its specific historical context. It is a universal symbol of hope. It assures us that no Haman, no matter how powerful, and no decree, no matter how terrifying, has the final say. The story of the hidden God, celebrated annually in this Feast of Reversal, is a promise that has been woven into the fabric of time itself. It declares that even when we cannot see him, he sees us. Even when we cannot hear him, he is working for us. And he is always turning the plots of the enemy on their head, transforming our greatest fears into our most profound and lasting joys. Thank you for watching this journey through the story of Esther and the hidden hand of Providence. If this video inspired you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope. Leave your thoughts or questions in the comments below. Your voice matters and helps us build a thoughtful community. For more deep dives into timeless stories and the lessons they hold for our lives today, hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Remember, your story is still being written. Stay curious, stay courageous, and keep seeking meaning in every chapter of your life. Thank you for joining us.